Thanks, guys, for that carrier update. We'll get one more before we are done for the day. Right now, it's time to welcome one of my favorite leading ladies in the freight industry, Ann Reinke, the president of the TIA. And thank you for joining us on this Thursday.
It is always delightful to be with you guys. How did your conference go last week?
Awesome.
It was awesome, and we missed you, but we hope that you're going to be with us. We hope you're going to be with us in Chattanooga in November.
Yes. Well, I will try. Whatever I can do, I will try.
Yeah, we've got to meet face to face, and like I echo the sentiments. You're one of my favorite leading ladies in the industry. Lots of interesting news, especially in the report that was just released here. Let's dig into that. What was your biggest takeaway? What's the overall sentiment?
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway, and you guys have been doing some great reporting on this, is that the volumes that we saw at the dizzying heights over the last 2 years are not sustainable. And yes, we did have a little bit of modest growth last quarter, but it was more due to continuing stresses in the marketplace, right? The fuel surcharges, the shutdown in Shanghai, that's not sustainable either. And I think ultimately that's going to be reflective in demand. So again, no reason to panic, but we don't think the volumes are going to return to the heights of last year.
And we've been talking about this now for, it feels like 6 to 8 months, right? We've all been kind of cautionary with our tail, like eventually things are going to fall off, whether they fall off a cliff or whether they take a nice little roll down a hill. And it seems like we're kind of in that in-between space, right? What are your members saying about this right now? And how are they reacting to this? You guys are in that intermediary space, so you're sitting kind of on that teetering edge almost.
Right. So on the one hand, there's a positive. When the economy slows, that means the capacity crisis that we've all been facing the last 2 years, and as you saw in your last report, has eased some, right? So yes, that's a benefit to our members for sure. But on the other hand, you know, the Shanghai lockdown means we're not getting the goods that we need to get to our customers. So that means the demand has gone down too. So on both sides of it, we're not getting as much demand from our shippers, but we are finding more available capacity. So it's like this sort of good news, bad news story, and we're right in the middle of it.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about that for a brief second. The Shanghai lockdown that is, that's going on there. Are you expecting, or are your members expecting a flood once that opens up, or is there any thought process there, or do you think it just stays a trickle?
Yeah, I don't know, but I will say this. They have literally completely shut down for the last 2 months. I mean, there's been absolutely no one working, and they've been locked into their homes. You have to think that there will be some enormous surge, but we just don't know when that's going to happen. The zero COVID approach that China has, you know, it means that this could be going on for a long time. Obviously, the populace is not happy with it. They are sort of doing their own version of protests, but we just don't know when it's going to pick back up. I do think, yes, there will be some. And in fact, I've heard, and you probably have heard the same thing, that maybe July 4th, that time frame, that could be kind of a mini surge, and then the fall again. But I don't think we're going back to last year.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either.
And so in April, when we were out at the TIA conference in San Diego, we had a ton of membership representation there at that conference. And everyone was asking, we were at the start of this conversation about, is there a freight recession imminent? Are we starting for a slowdown? And no one seemed really worried, right? There was kind of that little tinge of this is in the background, this might be happening. But nobody seemed worried. Nobody seemed to be taking those steps or those measures yet to get really prepared for this big slowdown. And now we're a month and a half later, and it's hit, and we're seeing this now. Do you think that there were any steps to preparedness that people should have been paying attention to a little bit earlier? Or are your members able to handle kind of the hurdles that they're seeing right now and kind of just take them and be okay with it?
Well, and Kaylee, you know this because you met so many of them at the conference. There's some folks who are seasoned veterans who've been through every economic cycle. And there are some who joined the industry like last year and have only seen boom times. What we have been trying to tell all of our members is, yeah, absolutely. Prepare for the worst, not expecting or anticipating that's going to happen, because these highs that we were on we can't be on these highs forever. And so, look, the best news that we have is that demand has slowed, but it's not dropped, and that there are still elevated volumes above what we saw, say, in 2017. So it's not like we're starting to have a recession per se, but what you've dug on, what you've pulled on here is that the Ukraine war, the fuel surcharges, inflation, and dislocation because of the supply chain that persists could ultimately lead us to a recession at some point, and maybe in 2023.
Yeah, it's relative, right? It's a relative situation right now. So, and I'm interested because it's not just truckload in your membership that is there. You're seeing are both sides meaning truckload and LTL, are both being affected the same way, both in say margins and volumes, or are there differences of opinions there?
Yeah, and I was surprised to see this too, that LTL actually had modest growth over that of truckload. And I have to think a couple things. One is that our members have become more savvy about the technology that they can use to kind of amplify capacity, and the fact too that the spot market continues relatively strong, and a lot of the LTL market benefits from a strong contract market, but also has a little bit of spot market exposure. So that was surprising to me, but it's sort of a recognition that the demand still is there, sort of is pulling on the same themes that we've had throughout our segment.
And with that, Ann, you guys also had some reports and some numbers on the intermodal sector. Can you touch on that really quickly before we let you go?
Well, so I used to work for the railroad, so God bless them. They're having a tough time. And part of it is labor shortage, that the Great Resignation. So they they furloughed a number of their staff during the lowest point of the coronavirus pandemic, and now they cannot hire fast enough. They just can't hire people. And I don't know where everyone is. They found some other job and they don't want to go back to wherever they were. And that could be potentially it. But that is what is affecting their service. And they are getting all the regulatory scrutiny. You all have written about it. The Surface Transportation Board has been hearing complaints from shipper customers about service breakdowns, et cetera. And so what our members are seeing on the intermodal space is there's so much potential there, but there's the freight space still is mired in service disruptions and failures.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I'd like to catch up with you again in your membership, hear what they have to say about some of the suggestions that are coming out of the reciprocal switching, et cetera. That'd be interesting to dig into that sometime.
Yeah, I could bore you to tears with my views on that.
I don't think I wouldn't be bored. I know Mike Bowden just wouldn't be bored either. But thank you so much, and we'll catch up with you a little bit later. Have a great rest of your day. Always interesting and always informative talking to Ann.